So I was sitting at home, reading the Bible, and I started to think about the principles of Steadicam, as you do. And I thought to myself, what if I change some of the things around that still follow the principles and see how the rig behaves? Are these setups better? Probably not. Would people like, comment, and subscribe on the video if I do? Are these setups extreme, pointless, and inefficient? Yeah, but it'll be fun, so let's do it anyway. So since this is extremely scientific, I'm gonna run a control with the rig set the way I normally would set it, with the volt turned off so that there is no influence from that. And I'll show you what the obstacle course I had planned out for it is. When you're shooting or practicing without the volt, I recommend taking off the belt. Start with loosening the motors as much as possible, and then pull the belt off. The other belt is easy to remove, but this one is a real pain. But it'll go faster the more that you do it. Then tighten up the motors again so nothing is rattling around. I start with the shot locked off and then moving forward. I then wrap around the tree to the right, walking backwards, and trying to keep the tree dead center in the crosshairs. Then a switch to Don Juan, keeping the tree centered. Then do a whip pan to the umbrella, trying to land it dead center on the crosshairs. Then, as I wrap around, I tilt down to the hole in the table. Then I tilt up, moving the crosshairs up the tree from before, and land with it almost straight up. When I'm talking about the principles of Steadicam, I'm talking about the arm and the gimbal separating my body movement from the sled's movement. And I'm not going to adjust any of those things. But what I am going to adjust is the top weight and the bottom weights that cause it to be balanced so that I can grab the balance point, and also put weights in the front and the back so that it increases the pan inertia. So as long as we keep the top and the bottom weight balanced, it should fly the same. So my idea is to put the monitor on top with the camera and see how that flies, and probably see how difficult it is to do that. I started by removing all the cables, and then taking off the monitor, yoke, and posts. I keep a small camera mount and some weights on there, so I took all that stuff off to save as much top stage weight as I could. I then take off the monitor bracket and carefully remove the collar. This always scares me. It seems like it shouldn't be able to bend this much, but it does. I have no idea what this piece costs either. It is a lot easier to do if you're not trying to film yourself doing it. Then put the collar on back above the gimbal. Don't break. Whew. Okay. Then the bracket, making sure to line it up with the cutouts in the collar. Make sure it lines up parallel to the camera, or else this experiment makes absolutely no sense. Then put the yoke and posts back in. I also added a third battery to the bottom because I wanted to keep the post shorter. And for a little extra, I tilted the batteries down. And with a bit of confusion, I figured out how to cable everything. Once that's done, it's ready to balance as normal. So this is the rig set up in its entirety. It is pretty ridiculous and I'm super excited about trying it out. It did balance kind of okay. It wasn't that big of a deal. I did have to lengthen the post a little bit just because the bottom weight couldn't quite keep up with the top weight. But I am shocked how well it actually balanced, and the dynamic balance wasn't really a problem at all. So let's try it out. Surprisingly, it actually flew really similar to the way it would normally. The pan and the tilt are really similar feeling, and as I was walking around, I really couldn't tell the difference. The real problem with this setup is where the monitor is placed. Because it is so high, I have to look up at the monitor to see, and this causes the same problem that made me add a low mode monitor to my rig. Because I'm looking up, I can't see the ground with my peripheral vision. This means I can't tell if I'm about to walk off the side of a cliff, or even if I'm about to step on some grass or not. It feels really unsafe. It also makes it hard for me to tell where I am in space, so things like my timing are way off. Also, having the monitor in this location meant that for most of the shot, I was only seeing about half of the image. Let's take a look at it from my point of view. The camera blocks a huge portion of the image, and the glare was way worse than it normally would be. I tried tilting the monitor to fix it, but it caused more of the monitor to be blocked by the yoke.
I would recommend being able to see the monitor. It makes framing and staying level much easier.
Overall, I'd give this rig a 4 out of 10. It is usable, but not as good as the regular way you'd set it. If it came to some purpose that you needed to do this, well, then it would work. So that didn't really work, but what if I take the monitor and put it back at the bottom like I normally would, and instead of having the camera parallel to the batteries in the monitor, I made it perpendicular. Now it should still have the same pan inertia, it should still balance. Will it work? I don't know.
I start off by removing the cables and neatly tucking them away. Then I remove the camera from the VTC plate, then removing the dovetail plate. After removing all the screws, I luckily already had the balance point marked. I forgot to remove it from when I made the first Steadicam beginners video. I have to turn the dovetail plate to see if anything lines up. I still want to use 2 screws. Not really. This'll line up. But the screw doesn't fit. Okay, I'm gonna have to figure that out. In my bin of junk, I found some matching screws that will work. Now let's put this bad boy back on the top stage. Center it up to the post. And attach the camera. Make sure you hear the click. Then wire it all up and balance as normal. Damn, there's not enough side-to-side movement for me to balance this. Take off the camera, move the plate some, and put it back on. Then balance as normal.
Alright, and this is what the rig looks like completed. I'm pretty excited about it. It is even more ridiculous than I expected it to be. It was very hard to dynamic balance. I don't think I quite got that. And I had to move the plate a couple of times. But I'm super excited to try it out, so let's see how it flies.
Starts off pretty normal, me walking towards the tree. I am struggling to keep it centered here. At least the horizon's not too bad. Okay, I can't figure out how to fix it. Which way does my brain can't figure it out? Okay, well the tree's kind of centered, a little bit struggling. The switch here, the monitor goes by me okay. Now for the whip pan. The whip pan is all over the place and way past where I wanted it to go. Oh, and now I'm lost, I can't. Okay, there's the post. Now I gotta tilt down. Oh, okay, this is going horrible. Back at the tree, tilt up, and it's perfect. I think my face explains how that one went.
So this rig was a lot of fun to try, and theoretically it did work. The pan, the tilt, all that kind of stuff felt the same. The whip pan felt the same. But because the monitor is turned, it was super disorienting. Now, maybe if I practiced with this for a really long time, it would be a totally normal thing, and I'd be able to frame like that, but for me, this time, it wasn't very easy. I would often overpan or underpan. It was hard to tell if I was level because there was nothing to really compare it to. And a huge issue that I found immediately was that it was really hard to get out of my door. Just trying my best not getting a shot. I can't imagine trying to get a shot going through the door with this.
Luckily, I video pretty much everything, so we can see what it looked like.
Well, I did find one flaw with it. Nailed it.
I did try this, like all of the rigs, multiple times, and they did improve a little each time, but it was far too disorienting to really use, and I can't think of a purpose for this rig at all.
With that said, I'd have to give this like a 2 out of 10. It did work, but is fairly unusable. So for my next idea, I noticed that I talk about pan inertia a lot. And pan inertia is when the weights are far out. It causes the rig to pan on its own less. It has more resistance to panning. So when you try to pan, it's harder to pan, and when the rig just wants to naturally pan, it's harder to pan. So let's make the pan inertia as low as possible and see what that's like.
I start by removing all the unnecessary weight by the monitor. Then I push it as close to the post as possible. The lighter the weight and the closer to the post, the better. I want to tilt the battery straight up. Oh, right. Well, I'll lengthen the post. Then tilt the batteries up. Then push the batteries as close to the post as possible. Then I'll shorten the post to what I can. I also remove the battery just to keep the weight as close to the post as possible. Now balance is normal. Also, I don't think I dynamically balanced this one. I think it would have killed some of the fun of it being minimalized as much as possible.
So this is the rig in its entirety. It is very compact, so that's convenient. I think that the monitor is going to have some issues seeing it through this pole, but I mean, every one of these setups has had monitor issues. There is no way to completely get rid of its pan inertia because the camera is so long. If I had thought ahead, maybe I would have used something smaller, like a point-and-shoot camera on it, but I kind of want all the cameras to match. So it should still make a difference, so let's try it out.
Walking forward it felt pretty normal, but when you start to do the wraparound, you can feel that it needs much more constant adjustment than I'm used to. I found it difficult to keep the tree centered. I expected that, but what I didn't expect was for the pendulum effect on the tilt and the horizon to be increased. The switch was much easier, as I did expect, and the whip pan was easier, but I was surprised how much easier. It took significantly less effort to spin and to stop, and you can see I undershot the landing because I'm used to it taking more effort to stop. The tilt down and the tilt up were less effort to do, but much harder to control.
Now that was kind of what I expected, but let's go the exact opposite direction and see how far is too far.
Start by adding back the weight and tilting it back. Oh right. Lengthen the post and then lower them so the weight is as far out as possible. Then fix the post. Then I'm going to max out how far these batteries can go. I'm also going to lower the monitor close to the batteries. This will make the rig more coplanar and will give the rig the best chance of being dynamically balanced and also ridiculous. I will also tilt the yoke so the monitor is out as far as possible. I also added some rod extenders to really get the monitor out there. It keeps going and yeah, that looks reasonable. Now balance is normal.
So this is what the rig looks like completed. It is pretty awesome and super ridiculous. I'm a little bit nervous about the switches that are gonna have to be done. I'm not sure how I'm gonna get it around my body, but that's kind of part of the fun. Also, I'm not sure if it's dynamically balanced. I couldn't spin it all the way around. It hits the post no matter what I do. So I figure it's close enough, whatever. It's a pretty stupid idea regardless, so let's try it out.
This rig has the feel as if you turn the drag up on a tripod. It wants to stay where it is and requires effort to move it. Of course, I had to push far away from me to be able to do the switch, but it's not so bad. The whip pan, if you can call it that, was really slow and took a lot of force to land it. The tilt was difficult to do, but once you got it there, it was fairly easy to hold. The tilt up, of course, was difficult to do as well. I decided to test out some whip tilts as well. When I would go to stop it, it felt like my pinky was going to break.
This is my favorite one so far. I'd have to give it an 8 out of 10 because it is actually kind of usable in the right scenarios. Like maybe it's really windy out or you're on a vehicle mount or something like that and you don't want it to tilt or pan very easily. It kind of makes sense to maybe do this, but for your average shot, I wouldn't recommend it. That is my last idea. If you guys have any other ideas you want me to try, leave them down in the comments, and thanks so much for watching. So what did we learn here today? Well, I don't really know because I shot this outro before I shot the rest of the video, and I don't know where it's going. Remember that second one? That one was crazy. So if you liked this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. And check out my Instagram @SteadyRed. And check out some of these other videos because they're pretty good as well.